truth is inherently ineffable, cannot be conveyed, cannot be heard, cannot be spoken, cannot be understood. No tactic, no strategy, no approach is a guarantee, because the truth is way beyond our human ways of working. So what really is then one going to say about it? And what really is anyone going to hear about it? Because beyond the saying and the hearing is the truth. But our intellect is inherently dual, full of duality. So then it makes a new position that therefore then I should not say or I should not hear. But in the not saying and not hearing also it doesn't happen. So there is no real escape for our limited understanding. So then, given the complexity of this whole task, the complexity of the human condition, one of the pathways then to God must be to return to that within us which does not clamor for understanding, does not clamor for sense making. And that is the child, the innocence of a child, which has been retained fully in its pristine nature in our heart. So, in our hearts, in our spiritual core, in our spiritual center, we remain full of that innocence, full of that love, full of that light. And that is why God's darshan only happens over there for us. Of course, we will see that everything is His reflection, even in the worldly appearance. But if you want to have the beyond all of this, just the sheer meeting, the place is in our heart, because the place, when we are in our heart, there is no pride, there is no understanding, there is no grasping. We are not troubling ourselves or our brothers and sisters over there. So it is not the mere appearance of Maya, but the loss of innocence because of grasping at Maya, which makes us caught up in this realm of suffering, in this realm of duality, in this realm of me and other. But our spiritual path must lead to that innocence where we come to a point where everything becomes about His will. So what am I learning in this process? I'm learning that life in front of me, I'm just learning to carry it on a plate and offer it to God and say, I bring this to you, I bring this to you, I bring this to you. I don't know what to do with it. And I'm recognizing that I've never really known, and I'm recognizing that none of us can actually ever really know. So I'm realizing that surrender is not so much about big proclamations, but about just in the simplicity every moment of saying, Lord, I bring this to you. Ramji, I bring this to you. Jesus, I bring this to you. Not necessarily in the words, but at least in our approach, at least in the way we are approaching it. So in this moment, all of you children are in front of me. Do I know what to do with you? I have no idea. I have no idea because everyone has a different temperament, everyone has a different approach to life, different perspectives, different experiences. So all I can do then is to say, Father, I bring this to you, including this body mind, and use this mouth as you will. And that is the only way I have found that we can really surrender the surrenderer. Otherwise, our surrender also becomes a position. We become very attached to our paths. I see some of you, and I see that unwittingly, when we say that this is my way, it starts off very innocently, but quickly it becomes, there is a possibility of pride, there's a possibility of a grasping, a sort of a reframing of ourselves in this new frame, in which, again, it is so subtle, but we lose that innocence of a child. So really letting go of that frame every moment and not knowing every moment with full trust, as much trust and devotion and love as possible, we bring everything only to God. Because He can deal with all of it much better than I ever could, or any of us ever could. So this seems to be in continuation with what we were sharing last time, which was that if we know the four things, which is that one, God is aware of every single thing. He is aware of my heartbeat, He is aware of my breath. Not just aware, in fact, He is the one who is the light of all of this. The only true Karta and Bhokta of my life. He is fully aware. And secondly, His love for me is beyond any human love. Has to be much deeper than we can even fathom. So the idea that he does not care about what's happening to me, in my exploration I've seen has to be completely alien to the reality of God. It is just not possible that way. So he is aware and he loves me deeply. And because thirdly, he is away from the bounds of time and space, he has an infinite amount of time for me. He has an infinite amount of time to work on me, to help me in whichever way. That time I do not have in the human condition, but he does. And because he is aware of everything, he loves me deeply, he has an infinite amount of time for me. I have nothing to worry because the fourth thing is that nothing is anything for him, nothing is difficult for him. His power is all encompassing without any doubt. There is nothing which is difficult for him to do. Given that he is like this, wouldn't it be a fallacy, wouldn't it be an ignorance to do this life which is so complicated with all of its variables and beyond any sort of fathoming and understanding? Wouldn't it be foolish to try and do this, run this life based on a human intellect and mind? If there is no other option, then we have to make do with what we have. So for most of us, it seems like there's no other option. I have to make do with this body, mind, intellect suit that I have, organism that I have. But once we are introduced to the truth from credible sources, from the wisest ones that we have met, that actually there is a better way to live, which is to offer every moment to God, and all the content of that moment, as well as the sense of doership, the sense of experiencership, all of this to be offered to God full-heartedly, with no fanciness. It's very important to not be fancy. Because fanciness is the doorway to trouble. Just in the sheer simplicity, like, how do I do this? Not, God, I leave everything to you, my life is yours now. As if you're in some Shakespearean drama. Just the simplicity that I bring this to you. This child asked me this question, what does this mean? I don't know. I bring this to you. Just in that simplicity, and the point of the 4 points is that he is always with us. So we don't need anything special. He doesn't need anything special. Sometimes we may feel like we need some steps in the process. We need to breathe along with the prayer, and we need to count, or we need to use a mala. All of that fanciness is all right because we need that for ourselves. But he doesn't need any of the fanciness from us, because if he just went to him and said, God, see this, that is enough. That's a prayer. You see what I'm saying? Just dekho. That's a prayer. And I've been noticing, and I shared that day also with Georgie, that most of our time goes in this conversation with ourselves, the false self. Even in our attempt to understand, especially in our attempts to solve problems, resolve things, we're just squeezing more and more stuff into our heads. And the symptom of that is worry, anxiety, trouble, suffering, because our heads are too tiny to try and squeeze all of this. Just like we cannot squeeze the ocean into a lemon, we cannot squeeze our life into our heads. And when you start to get worried, that is a sign that you're misusing your mind. You can't handle it, so it starts to complain. Leave it. So to worry, we have to negate at least one of the four things, isn't it? He's not all powerful, he does not have time for me, he does not love me, or he does not know what is happening. And all four of them are absurdly silly, that if God was empty of any of these attributes, then he would not be God. So this surrendered life is also the life in which true insight can happen. You try to worry, you try to think, resolve your things, operate in doership, operate in duality, and intuitive insight will seem like a far-fetched proposition. It just won't happen because you're not switching out of the false tools and living in the true place. So what I'm saying is that anytime we have the temptation to take on something, just offer it to God instead. Because the beauty of this is when you're not taking on anything, then He is working on us anyway. So beautiful. Saint Teresa of Avila, she said, when I'm empty of myself, He works on my heart. And if you just hear one line like that, He works on my heart. He who has infinite time for whom everything is easy, he can elevate my heart. And the heart is that aspect of us which can be pulled up like that, no? And pulls the rest of us. Have you seen like that? That it doesn't have to feel like going up like that. It can sometimes feel a very great deepening as well. And either way, it is rising to meet God. But because everything is so interconnected, it pulls the rest of what I take myself to be, and it pulls in some way or the other, whether the world likes it or not, admits it or not, also those around one who is being pulled in that way also get pulled in. Just like this movement of Satsang, which is so organic that it was never a plan for any of you to be here, either from my side or from yours, and yet it is just part of that pulling, which is not restricted to a particular body mind, but to some thing which only God decides what is the boundary of that pulling. And maybe there is no boundary. Maybe some effect happens for the entire universe in some way. So, and that kind of work no human can ever do for themselves. Only God can do this. So the main point is, don't, when the temptation comes to take something on for yourself, like this is my problem, or this is my, I own something, or this is my life, or this I have to solve, deepen in the habit of bringing it to God. And in our bringing it to God, then we make ourselves available to be worked on by Him. And the light which is in our heart then can spread into every aspect of our being and every aspect of this universe.